Have you ever seen a dead body? I don't mean in a funeral home nicely laid out in a coffin. I mean the newly dead, with that terrible stillness that comes to the body when the soul, spirit, life force, whatever, leaves it. I'm a cop living in a small town, and I've never even investigated a murder, let alone seen a murder victim, but I have seen many corpses. Fresh corpses, if you will, killed in accidents, simply because they became too old, although doctors never call it that, several times by suicide. These suicides may have been the worst bodies ever seen. I mean, they're dead because they wanted to be dead, cruel to survivors. My story begins with me coming home from work, not early, not late, just at my usual time. It's the middle of winter, so I used the remote control to open the garage door as I pulled into the driveway. The wife's car is there, in its usual place. No one else's car in the garage or in the driveway. I parked on my usual side of the garage. There's a lot of normal going on here. I entered the house from the garage. No premonitions, no worries, just a normal return home after work. Entering the kitchen, I shouted, "Janie, I'm home." No answer. The beginning of anxiety, not strong anxiety yet, just anxiety like, I wonder where she is. I walked through the kitchen into the hallway. No Janie, no sounds at all. I began to climb the stairs to the bedroom level, still making no noise, my anxiety becoming more serious. Almost at the top of the stairs, the anxiety intensified. There was a premonition that something bad was happening. I actually pulled out my service weapon for the first time in years. Our bedroom door was closed. I inhaled and exhaled partially to deal with the stress. I turned the doorknob and pushed the door open with my gun, and he stopped. I immediately thought about the crime, but as I stood there and analyzed what I saw, I realized that this was perhaps worse than a crime. My wife lay in our bed with that terrible stillness which characterizes a dead body. I could try to run up to her, hug her, and shake her, and maybe discover that she's not really dead, that she's just sleeping or maybe unconscious. But next to her, with the same immobility, lay a man. I didn't go to bed. I walked to the windows and opened them both, as wide as they could be, even in the midwinter weather. I then turned off the propane heater that my wife had probably turned on to keep them warm while they did what they were doing. I actually touched my wife's carotid artery, just to make sure there was no pulse. I did not touch the man, did not go to the other side of the bed. I was shocked. It seemed to me that I was moving in water or molasses, slowly and with difficulty. My thoughts are a mixture of despair and trying to think the way a policeman must think when he discovers two dead bodies. I stood there with my arms at my sides, trying unsuccessfully to look at my wife and not see the asshole next to her. As my brain began to work a little better, I realized that at some point I had holstered the weapon. This realization activated my brain. I left the bedroom and went down the stairs. I couldn't call my partner. He had just returned from work and could do nothing to help with this mess. I mean, why ruin his evening? I decided to call my boss, Captain Caparelli. Caparelli, Detective Department. Dave, I said, and thought, like a million times, that David is a strange name for an Italian child. Maybe his mom had a relative named David, but... Hi, who is it? Dave, this is Jack Thomas, and I couldn't continue. Jack, what happened? You just finished your shift. Did you get home okay? Yes, Dave, listen. I need you to come to my house, with a team of, ambulances, I guess, to the crime scene, but, no sirens, just quiet, I knew my voice didn't sound very coherent. No, Jack, I don't understand. Now take a deep breath, exhale a little, and tell me what's going on. I almost laughed when I heard him remind me of the stress reliever we were all supposed to practice when we needed it. Dave? Yes, okay, listen. There was an accident at my house. It's just come to my house with the team, okay? Jack, I'm on my way. I think the sound of my voice convinced him that something serious was going on. I just sat there in the living room, waiting for the circus that was about to descend on me and that bedroom upstairs. I couldn't get back upstairs, but I managed to open the front door. Captain Caparelli came in a few minutes later, followed by 2 uniformed officers, 2 EMTs, and a guy I knew was our local crime scene investigator. Dave raised his hand, and they all stopped. Then he came and sat next to me. "Jack, before we go any further, how about you hand me your service weapon?" I looked at him in surprise, but then I realized that I shouldn't be surprised. Judging by my rambling phone call, he was probably wondering what I could do. "Of course, Dave, here it is," I said, handing it over. "You see, they didn't shoot from it. Actually, I've never fired one while on duty." "Okay, thank you. Now could you tell us, or maybe show us, what's going on?" I stood up, about 100 years older than I had been an hour ago, and led him upstairs. Again, he motioned for the others to wait. We reached the end of the stairs, and I motioned him into what had been Janie and I's bedroom. I would never sleep there again, and neither would she. So, of course, it was no longer our bedroom. I recovered a little from the initial shock and followed him into the bedroom. "Dave, this is Janie. You might recognize her from parties in the department. I don't know who this asshole is. I came home from work, went upstairs, and found them in this state." The heater worked. I turned it off and immediately opened both windows. That's why it's so cold here. I didn't touch any of them, just felt Janie's carotid artery to see if there was a pulse. He was absent. Then I went downstairs and called you. I think I was in a bit of shock when I called, and I apologize for that. I think I'm still a little in shock, but I'm coping. I know you need to process this scene. I'd like to wait downstairs. I really don't want to stay up here. Jesus, Jack, hell yes, go downstairs. Wait, I'll go with you and gather a team to deal with this. He gathered them all, and they got to work. Sometime later, an ambulance arrived with 2 folding gurneys containing wrapped forms. Someone took the heater out, I think, to check. And Dave sat down next to me again. "Jack, I know this is a terrible time for you, but I have to ask. Do you know this person? I mean, the man upstairs." I tried not to look at him. Not very professional of me, but no, I don't think I've ever seen him. I'm going to show him his driver's license, just the photo part, and ask again, "Have you ever seen him? Do you know him?" I actually looked at the photo, actually studied it, not to see if I knew the asshole, but to try to see what Janie saw in him. But I just couldn't see anything. "No, Dave, I've never seen him. I don't know who he is. And maybe worse, I don't see any magic, no attraction, nothing that would draw Janie to him." And I started crying in front of Dave and the crime scene guys. I tried to stop. I knew that they would tell this whole dirty story throughout the department. I knew that people would feel sorry for me, but at the same time whisper about how I could not satisfy my wife, how I was a cuckold. At some point, my partner, Mike Blankenship, and his wife, Molly, showed up. Dave disappeared, and Mike and Molly sat with me, gave me something to drink, and finally took me into the kitchen to try and feed me. Nobody said much. They just sat with me. Molly held my hand. They both said that everything would work out. Eventually, they sort of picked me up and walked me to their car. We went to their house. Molly gave me sleeping pills, and they put me to bed in their guest room. I'd never taken sleeping pills before, and I think the pills gave me strange dreams that night, dreams of Janie and me, Janie and the asshole, Janie and some other man. Eventually, the pills wore off, and I woke up early on a still dark winter morning. I lay there thinking about my now dead marriage, wondering why Janie cheated, for how long, with one asshole or with others, with many others. Bad thoughts that come to mind in the dark, in an unfamiliar house. Did she love this guy? Was she going to leave me? We had been married for 10 years, had no children, neither of us were kid lovers, and 4 months ago, we took a cruise to the Caribbean to celebrate our 10-year anniversary. I thought we had a lot of fun, and I know we had a lot of sex, and I thought the sex was good. We even went skinny dipping on the beach in St. Martin. Janie teased me when I got horny. I remember telling her that I was horny for her, and not for the other naked ladies, none of whom looked as good as her. Later that day, back on the ship, we showered together, which was not easy in that very small ship shower, but we washed each other, and I washed Janie's hair. After our shower, the sex was amazing. Finally, she began to cry. "Jackie, Jackie, Jackie, you killed me. I will never be able to get out of this bed." Funny choice of words in retrospect. And now, in the Blankenship's guest room, I began to cry again, remembering that time on the ship. When Janie came to her senses a little, I took a brush and began combing her hair, which I rarely did. For me, combing her hair was something even more intimate than sex. I could please her in any way and did it with enthusiasm. I liked it, and I think she liked it. But combing her hair somehow touched a chord in me. I remember that day on the ship, running a brush through her hair, untangling the tangles that had formed after we rolled around on the bed, and crying because I loved her so much. And now, lying in the dark, I cry again, because I know that all this is gone, or maybe it never was. Eventually, I heard a noise in the house, got up, took a quick shower in the bathroom, put on the same clothes I wore the day before, and wandered into the kitchen. Molly was already there, preparing breakfast, and the coffee was ready. She didn't say anything, she just hugged me, and that was the right thing to do. The feeling of a woman's warm body, her arms around me, the smell of her hair gave me more comfort that morning than any words could have given me. We stood there for a minute or so, and then she gently pushed me away. "Drink some coffee, Jack, and have breakfast. I think you need both this morning." "Thank you, Molly. You're right. I guess I haven't eaten anything since yesterday's lunch." "Eh, Molly?" She turned from the stove to look at me. "Thank you for the hug. This means a lot to me." "Well, Jack, you mean a lot to me." "And for me, partner," Mike said, entering the kitchen. "I know you just received the worst deal life can give you, but I also know that you are a tough cookie and will survive this shit show." Molly and Mike didn't go to work. After breakfast, they took me to a nearby park. Mike tricked me into kicking a soccer ball with him, then Molly tried to get me to play tennis, and then they gave up trying to distract me. We sat down at the picnic table and I just looked at Mike. "Okay, partner," he said. "Obviously fun and games don't work, so how about I tell you the news about yesterday? Will this be better?" "Mike, you know it's true. I need information, not distraction." "Fine. I called the office early this morning and will relay what I was told. The guy's name was, James Johnson. He was an executive director of a lumber export company, and his wife is a homemaker who cares for their 2 children, ages 10 and 8. She got hysterical last night when Robert O'Toole, you know Robert, right?" I nodded. Robert O'Toole was our best death notification cop. "Well, he and the pastor went to their house to give her the news, just a notice and news of the cause of death, and she got hysterical. I think she eventually came to her senses a little, her parents came, and O'Toole and the pastor left. That's when things must have gotten really interesting. The TV news was already broadcasting a story about a faulty propane tank and 2 people, unmarried to each other, dying from carbon monoxide poisoning. Mrs. Johnson must have seen this because she went a little crazy. She started leaving her husband, well, her late husband at that point. Anyway, she started throwing his things out on the front lawn, and that's about when his parents showed up. I guess not knowing about the plot on TV. She attacks them, I think, for what a vile son they raised. One of them calls 911, and a patrol car pulls up. Then the owner really goes crazy. She grabs a knife from somewhere and tries to stab one of the responding policemen, who turns out to be a woman. The arriving police must have been unaware of the earlier event, because one of the 2 patrol officers shocks her with a stun gun. This leads to her parents getting into a fight and more cops being called. And of course the TV van appears. Eventually enough management arrives to calm everyone down. No one went to jail, and I understand everyone has apologized. Oh my God, this is a shit show. I had no idea what bad show you were talking about. Yes. The captain asked me to keep you out of the office for a few days until he calls and says you can come back. You and I are both fully paid now, so that's good. He said it might be good for you to get away, maybe for a week, somewhere warm, maybe on a cruise. Yes, right now I feel like I'm on a cruise. Well, I think he thinks it might help you to be away from this show, give you some time to recover from what your wife did. You know? Mike and Molly, you guys are great friends, and I know you and Caparelli are doing well, but I need to stay here. I can't figure out what happens if I'm somewhere far away on a cruise ship. Besides, I couldn't tell them about my last cruise with Janie and how I cried about it last night. I'll call Caparelli tomorrow and tell him I plan to stay here, figure this out, and get back to work when I'm ready. And that's what I did. I got a temporary apartment. I just couldn't live in that house anymore. I tried to sell it, but the realtor, a friend's wife, told me the house wasn't selling well when an event happened there. She suggested that I rent it out for a while and then she could sell it when the story became old news. I ended up renting it out to a young couple who had a decent job but no money for a down payment. Maybe they can become my customers in the future. The coroner's hearing took place exactly 1 month after the 2 deaths. I had to testify along with Caparelli and the other guys who were there that day. The decision was indeed made. Accidental death from carbon monoxide poisoning due to a faulty propane gas heater. It turns out the heater was recalled due to defects and the manufacturer filed for bankruptcy, I believe, due to the number of deaths attributed to the heater. Janie and I missed the recall notice and never thought about the dangers of using the heater. Due to bankruptcy, any claims I might have made against the heater manufacturer were useless. But I have some good news from our insurance coverage department. The department covered all employees with a $500,000 life insurance policy and withheld $12 monthly per pay period for the same coverage for our wives. And plus, there was double compensation for death as a result of an accident. This meant I received $1 million tax-free. I never learned anything about the affair between Janie and that asshole, how long it lasted, how they met, how it all started, how they felt about each other. This last unknown was the worst for me. What did they feel for each other, and what would it mean for their spouses? Judging by the rumors, the asshole's widow was a real bitch who tried to blame everyone except her husband for what happened. Maybe he wanted to leave his wife and was trying to get Janie to leave me, or maybe Janie and the asshole had already decided to leave their spouses and run away together, or maybe they were just fuck buddies, or who the hell take it knows. This will haunt me for a long, long time. For now, I just go to work and hope for a better future. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.